Welcome to this quiet space, a place where every soul is heard, and where maybe just for a few minutes in this long night you can finally be yourself. Perhaps you've already felt it, something moving, softly yet powerfully deep inside your heart. No one speaks of it, but you know a truth is trying to come to light. And when it does, some will be surprised, some will fall silent, and some may walk away. But deep down, you understand this isn't the end. It's the beginning of something your soul has been waiting for a very long time. Because sometimes, to live as who you truly are, you must be willing to wake the world that's still asleep around you. Aries. Sometimes life doesn't send us gentle signs. It chooses to knock on the door with a strong wind, a change so sudden it shakes the heart awake, not to punish you, but to awaken you. Something is coming slow, steady, inevitable, like thunder rolling before the rain. And when it arrives, not only you, but your entire family will feel the tremor. Not because you've done something wrong, but because, for the very first time, they will see the real you, the part of yourself you've kept hidden for so long. For years, you've lived like a flame buried deep beneath the ground. You've learned to smile when you didn't want to stay silent while your heart was screaming. You've done everything to keep the peace, to make sure no one felt disappointed, to avoid standing out. But that quiet peace is cracking. Beneath the thin layer of ash, your fire is still alive, glowing softly, waiting for the moment to rise, not to burn, but to illuminate, to show the world that your light was never meant to be contained in someone else's mold. Your light belongs to the open sky, to shine, to warm, to guide. People often fear what they don't understand. Your family is no different. They may not be ready to face your truth, because doing so would mean facing the truth of their own. But sometimes, the truth that makes others uncomfortable is the greatest gift you can offer them. I've always believed a shock is never a punishment. It's an invitation from the soul. When one door closes, it's not meant to imprison you, but to stop you from running away from your own light. And that light, no matter how bright, no matter how blinding, has always been yours. It was born to lead, not to ask for permission to shine. You may feel confused, unsure how to move forward without hurting anyone. But sometimes, the greatest act of love we can give the people we care about is to live truthfully. Because only when we are honest with ourselves can we teach others how to live honestly too. Take a breath. Feel your heartbeat, not from fear, but from life awakening inside you. Within that fear lies a sacred calling, the voice of freedom, whispering your name. You are being guided, not by logic, but by something greater, the power of your soul, waiting so long to finally speak its truth. Maybe you don't feel ready. Maybe you fear losing something precious. But remember, real light never destroys. It only reveals what was already there. When the light appears, shadows fade, and everything false falls away. This is not an ending. It's the beginning of your return to yourself. And sometimes, what shocks others isn't your change. It's your light finally being seen for the very first time. That moment is coming, Aries. Like dawn breaking through thick clouds, your light is about to be seen whole, unfiltered, undeniable. But before it rises, the universe always sends quiet signs, small, subtle ones, whispers from destiny, guiding you toward what's next. There are nights when you lie still in the dark, listening to the clock ticking slower than usual. Outside, the world sleeps quietly, but inside you something stirs. It's subtle, like a small wave rising from the depths of an unseen ocean. No one can see it, but you can feel it clearly. A part of you is getting ready to speak a truth that's been held back for far too long. You replay imaginary conversations in your head, over and over. You wonder, if I speak my truth, how will they react? In your mind, you hear the same questions repeating. What are you thinking? Why aren't you like before? And just the thought of their disappointed eyes makes your chest tighten. All your life, you've been the one who kept things calm, the one who made others proud, the one who always knew how to keep peace. But now, that peace no longer lives inside you. Perhaps it's because you've spent too long playing the role of the agreeable one, the gentle one, the one who hides their own fire so no one gets burned. Every time you want to speak the truth, you feel as if you're betraying someone. But you're not betraying anyone. You're simply trying to be honest with your own soul. There's that feeling again, like a soft knock from within your chest, a heartbeat whispering, "It's time." Change rarely arrives in grand moments. Sometimes it begins quietly. One morning you wake up and realize you can't keep living the same way. A small conversation makes you feel out of place. Or maybe it's just a glance in the mirror when you realize the person staring back at you isn't the same anymore. Change always begins in silence. Before a fire bursts into flame, it glows softly, spreading through every breath, every gaze. And you know soon, you won't be able to hold it back. If you keep suppressing it, the fire will burn you from the inside. But if you let it rise, it will become light. I know you're afraid of hurting someone, afraid of breaking the image you've spent years building. But here's the truth: no one ever finds peace living inside a role. Even the most perfect role is just a beautiful prison. Truth can hurt, yes, but it's the only wound that leads to freedom. You weren't born to please. You were born to lead through truth. Others may not understand yet. They may need time to accept, but your soul is already ready. Because courage doesn't live in confrontation, it lives in the quiet admission, "I'm tired of pretending." And so you begin to notice the signs more clearly. Long silences between conversations, forced smiles, moments when you swallow words you want to say. Everything feels slightly tilted, as if the air itself is preparing for a shift. No one speaks of it, but you can feel the change hanging in the room. Maybe one night, you'll sit up in bed, look out the window, and understand this is the moment before everything changes. There's no sound of a bell, no flash of light, only a strange, sacred stillness, as if the universe itself is holding its breath with you. And in that silence, you realize what you're about to do isn't just changing your own life, it's changing how you and your family see each other. A new chapter is approaching. Quiet, but powerful enough to shift everything. When you finally stand up and choose your own path, the clash will be inevitable. But sometimes, only when the sound of collision echoes, do we finally realize our hearts are still beating. At some point in life, everyone stands between two shores: one side, the heart that longs for freedom; the other, the family that wants you to be safe. At first, that difference is only a small crack, but over time it widens into a distance no words can fill. When those two energies finally collide, there are no winners. Only tears, words you can't take back, and the quiet ache of knowing things will never be the same again. To them, it might look like you've changed. You're no longer compliant, no longer easy. They'll ask why you've become so stubborn, who influenced you, what pulled you away from the values they once taught you. But the truth is, you're simply returning to yourself, to the version that's been silent for too long. And sometimes, living honestly forces others to face the parts of themselves they've been pretending to ignore. I've watched many souls reach this point, that sacred moment when they can no longer perform the role assigned to them. Some walk away from the house that once felt like shelter. Others simply stop nodding to what they no longer believe in. Everyone pays a price, because every kind of freedom costs something. But if the price you pay is the return to who you really are, it's never too high. In my own journey, I've learned this. No one truly opposes you. They only oppose the reflection of themselves that your truth forces them to see. When you stand tall, Your light reaches into the corners others tried to keep hidden. It frightens them not because you're wrong, but because your courage becomes a mirror of their unspoken fears. Picture two flames, one bright, one faint. As they draw closer, the wind begins to rise. The weaker flame pulls back, afraid to be consumed, but it's the stronger flame that can reignite the one that's fading. If met with awareness, that collision can become the beginning of a shared awakening. True love doesn't seek obedience, it seeks aliveness. A real family doesn't need replicas of the same quiet soul. It needs honest ones, willing to shine light on each other's truth. They may not understand now, but every word you speak from your heart plants a seed, and someday, that seed will grow into understanding. When your light rises, the shadows in others will tremble. But it's from that trembling that awakening begins. Through your courage, you become the spark that ignites a change someone in your family was too afraid to start. Don't fear the thunder of confrontation. Inside every lightning strike, there's light. Inside every harsh word, there's fear of being left behind. Look beyond the storm, and you'll see real love always hides behind fear. And only when someone walks through the storm does a family truly learn what it means to love in freedom. The moment you cross that invisible line, when the voice of your soul grows louder than the voice of fear, the world within you begins to shift. And behind every collision that seems like breaking, there's always a deeper lesson waiting to be understood. A lesson not just for you, but for everyone quietly watching your courage unfold. Some lessons don't come from books or the words of others. They come from the quiet, trembling moments when you stand on the thin line between love and truth. That moment when you realize love isn't about agreeing with everything, and peace isn't about staying silent just to keep others comfortable. That's when you begin to understand your soul didn't come into this world to learn obedience. It came here to learn how to love with an open heart while still remaining whole. Each of us carries a different lesson, and yours is courage. The courage to speak, to choose, to stay true to your own path even when that path makes others uncomfortable. Because sometimes that kind of courage is the highest form of love, a love that doesn't bow, doesn't control, and doesn't beg to be understood. Your family might think you're turning against them, but you're not rebelling. You're setting both sides free from a delicate illusion people often call harmony. The kind of harmony that makes you swallow your tears and trim parts of yourself just to fit into a box someone once labeled love. Real love doesn't control. Real freedom doesn't need permission. And honesty, even when it hurts, is still the purest gift you can give. Because truth doesn't destroy relationships, it only destroys the ones built on lies. I once believed silence was a form of love. But time taught me this. When you choose silence to keep the peace, you're teaching others that their comfort matters more than your truth. Yet when you choose truth, even with shaking hands and a breaking voice, you're teaching them what unconditional love really means. A love that doesn't need you to pretend. There's a moment that comes after honesty when the air feels heavy, and the eyes of those you love are filled with surprise, confusion, even anger. But in that stillness, something begins to shift. A small door opens in their awareness, just a crack, and through that tiny crack, real love starts to flow in. The lessons of the soul are rarely gentle. They often come disguised as conflict, loss, or being misunderstood. But if you look deeply enough, you'll see that every pain carries an invitation to become more truthful, more free, and more compassionate. You might wonder, why me? Why do I have to be the one to break the calm illusion? Because your soul is stronger than you think. It chose this path, knowing only you could do it, only you could love without losing yourself, only you could step out of the role and walk back into your true being. And if ever you feel alone, remember no one walks the path of truth alone. The universe quietly walks beside those who dare to be real. There are invisible hands holding you in places the human eye cannot see. In the stillness after the storm, you'll feel everything slowly finding its right place again, the broken pieces aligning into something new. And maybe, in the moment you think you're completely alone, a warm presence surrounds you as if something unseen is whispering, "Keep going. You are not alone." Because when you choose truth, the universe will never leave you to walk alone. And in that silence, something sacred begins to unfold, a soft, steady light breaking through, guiding you toward a deeper peace where faith and protection await, gentle yet powerful like the breath of the earth itself. After every breaking point, there's always a long silence. No more arguments, no more anger, just the steady breathing of a soul that's finally made it through the storm. You sit there, in the same familiar room, and yet everything feels different. The pictures still hang on the wall, the clock still ticks as it always has, but the air has changed. Maybe it's the absence of what used to be the things you had to pretend to keep the peace. When you choose to live truthfully, you don't lose your family. You only lose the version of them that couldn't love you when you became real. It hurts, yes, but it's a necessary kind of pain, like unclenching a hand that's held too tightly, so the blood can flow again through your fingers. The souls who love you for real will never leave. They'll find their way to you one by one, like stars appearing in a dark sky, guiding you through the night. The universe has its own way of protecting those who choose honesty. Not through walls or miracles, but through encounters. A new friend, a stranger smiling as they pass, a book that shows up exactly when you need it, each one a quiet reminder. You are not alone. I remember once when my own life began to unravel because I dared to step outside the mold, a teacher told me. Protection doesn't come from the outside, it comes from the light within you. When you know you are not wrong for being honest, the universe rearranges itself to protect you. I didn't understand it then. But over time, I realized that light was real. It lived in the way you stand back up, in the way your eyes still hold warmth despite the scars, in the calm breath you take even when the wind howls around you. Freedom isn't being accepted by others. It's reaching the point where you no longer need their acceptance. When you get there, you stop waiting to be understood. You stop explaining. You stop chasing approval. You simply live, honestly. Live fully, like a candle that doesn't need wind to shine. I used to fear rejection. I bent myself to please everyone else. Until one day, I realized being rejected for who you are feels lighter than being loved for who you pretend to be. That kind of rejection is actually a doorway, a passage to freedom. Because only when those who can't accept you walk away does space open up for the ones who truly see you to step in. There is an invisible protection that surrounds honest souls. It doesn't shout or promise. It's just a quiet knowing that even when the world doesn't understand you, something inside whispers, "Keep going. I'm here." And when the storm finally passes, you'll look back not with regret, but with realization. That loss never came to take, it came to return you to yourself. To return freedom to a heart once bound, to return meaning to the word love. Outside, morning light filters through the leaves, touching the wet ground after the rain. Everything is still there, but softer now, truer somehow. And in that light, something opens quietly. No longer fear, but a new whisper from the soul. A gentle reminder that beneath every loss, there is always a meaning waiting to be found. Some upheavals don't come to destroy, they come to open a door that generations before you were too afraid to touch. And when the waves of emotion finally settle, you begin to see it clearly. What just happened isn't only between you and your family. It's part of a much deeper current, the current of souls tied by blood, all searching for real freedom. For a very long time, your family may have lived under unspoken rules. Everyone must be the same. Stay safe. Sacrifice yourself to keep the peace. to protect the family's image. What once looked like love quietly turned into chains, wrapping themselves around generation after generation. One person stayed silent, and the next learned to do the same. One person swallowed their truth, and those who came after followed suit. And so fear was passed down like an inheritance no one dared to question. But then you arrived. A soul carrying a different frequency, one that dares to speak, to walk away, to pay the price of truth. Maybe you don't realize it yet, but the moment you chose authenticity, you began rewriting your family's story. You're freeing them from invisible vows, from the shadow of submission that's lingered for decades. You're not rebelling against your family, you're healing them. Because the truth is, when you dare to be different, you're not betraying your roots. You're showing them another way, a path where love doesn't require obedience, where peace no longer depends on pretending. Sometimes, the only way to save a sleeping river is to shake it awake. And the shock you've brought, that's the sound of awakening. I believe their souls understand, even if their minds can't yet. Because on a deeper level, every soul longs for freedom to love in light, not in fear. When you live truthfully, your energy ripples outward, moving through the unseen threads that bind your family, reaching hearts that have long been closed. Maybe not today, maybe not soon, but one day, someone in your family will look at you and whisper, "Thank you for going first." The most sacred thing about a shock isn't the external change, it's the shift in collective energy. You become the flame of awakening, lighting the path that others were too afraid to walk. And as your light spreads, the shadows within the family, the misunderstandings, the wounds, the silences begin to fade. When society witnesses someone brave enough to live honestly, it too is healed a little. Because that act says, you don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to be real. Every soul who stands for their truth becomes a living prayer for humanity. If you've ever lived through such a shock, a moment when your truth made others turn away, misunderstand, or reject you, share your story. Let the comment space become a circle of souls learning how to be free. Because your words might become the torch for someone standing on the other side of fear, just waiting for a bit of light to cross over. In the end, it's only when we dare to face the shock that we step into rebirth. Like the earth after rain, damp, silent, but ready to bloom. You may not see it yet, but new seeds are already awakening within you and within those who once trembled before the light you carry. After long nights of tears and silence, there comes a moment when you finally realize the dawn has arrived. Not a loud or fiery sunrise, but a soft one. A tender light that moves slowly through your soul, as if life itself is whispering, you made it through the storm. Everything that once made you tremble, everything that once weighed heavy on your heart, now feels distant like an old dream that has lost its power. You are no longer the child who needs permission to live, no longer the one seeking approval in every nod, every smile, every word of praise. Now, you are a free soul, grown and radiant in your own light. And this freedom, it doesn't shout, it doesn't need to prove itself. It's the gentle breath of someone who finally knows who they are, who has accepted what cannot be changed, and who still dares to love even after being hurt. Your family may need time to understand. Or maybe they never truly will. But you no longer need their understanding to be at peace. Because real peace doesn't come from agreement, it comes from acceptance. Acceptance that every soul has its own journey. And sometimes, to keep love alive, you must learn to let it be free. In this new light, you see the meaning behind it all. No resentment, no fear, only openness. The shock that once took your breath away has now become a doorway, one that opens to a brightness you've never known. And there, in that light, you realize truth never comes to break you. It comes to make you clear. Your fire was never born to destroy, it was born to purify. All that was false, fearful, or heavy melts away in that light, you don't need to change anyone. You only need to keep the flame within you alive, because that light, sooner or later, will guide those still wandering in the dark. The shock of today is the rebirth of tomorrow. And rebirth doesn't mean becoming someone new, it means coming home to who you've always been. The one who once knew how to love, how to trust, how to smile without condition. The world around you may still look the same, but you are different. Every breath now carries gratitude. Every glance is softer. You walk slower, but with greater certainty, because you're no longer afraid of the wrong path. The path isn't out there anymore, it's within your heart. And maybe one day, when someone looks at you, they'll notice something different, not exactly change, but light. A quiet light, no longer burning wildly, but warm, deep, full of life. The light of someone who's known loss, understood truth, and learned to love without chains. Thank you, brave soul, for listening to these words. Wherever your journey leads, remember this: the universe has never left your side. May the light within you always guide your way, no matter how much the ground may tremble. May you always have the courage to live truthfully, and the compassion to love, even when misunderstood. Namaste.